First question's from Jorge Castillo. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jorge.
Okay. Hello, Dave. You hear me?
Yep.
Just with Cody, I think last week you had mentioned that he'd probably play today. I'm just wondering why the decision was made to have him play again tomorrow.
I think it was just more of just being out there, not to go back to back, and he'll play tomorrow and take 3 at bats, play 6 innings, and it's just the progression that the training staff wanted for him.
And then Turner, with Justin Turner, how do you envision playing time for him this year? His workload.
It's just honestly, it's hard to say without me, looking at the calendar, the schedule, seeing how he's feeling day to day, week to week. So I'm hesitant to put a number on it. We open up 4 in Denver, so to see him starting 3 or 4, I think that's most likely. And then after that, Jorge, I just really don't know how it's going to look.
And it's the type of thing when it's a day off for him where Rios would start against maybe a righty and then Taylor at third base against a lefty.
If that's the case, I mean, I just think that having CT to be able to be over there if we do need him is a luxury. But yeah, I think if Eddie's in there, it'll be against a right-handed pitcher, certainly.
And then with Clayton Kershaw yesterday, he was obviously frustrated with how he performed. His velo looked like his fastball was 88, 89. Is that what you expect from him at this point? And do you expect that to increase?
I think, it's funny is I think we have this conversation every year with Clayton, and I'm not concerned about it. And I think that if you look at adrenaline relative to each pitcher, they're all sort of in that same bucket, whether it's Gonsolin, it's May, it's Bauer, it's the same. The velocity will tick up, when the adrenaline and all that stuff. And this is part of the build-up process for these guys.
Thank you, Dave.
Yep.
Next question is from Dave Vassay. Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, Dave. I was just
Dave.
curious. Cody wasn't very clear on what the purpose is about opening his stance yesterday. And I was just curious, is it more about pitch recognition? What do you believe the purpose is, and how is it going to help him?
Well, I'll tell you this, is that I can't speak for Cody, but what I do know is that the hitter's comfort level in the batter's box is important. And when you feel comfortable, it allows for you to see the ball better, getting off your A swing. Even Corey's a little bit more upright than he was last year. So there's always kind of, where Justin is a guy that kind of just has his one setup and he sticks to it. Some guys are different. Mookie has one setup with a few little tinkers, but I think that Corey and Cody are very field driven. And so right now that's where we're at. And as long as, he's talking to hitting guys and they're talking through things, and could it evolve, in time? Absolutely. But it could also stick. So right now I just support, where he's at.
Has it been your experience playing and coaching and managing that guys open up their stance so they get 2 eyes on the pitcher and the baseball?
Yeah, I think that some guys feel that way, and logic says that makes sense, to a point. But I think that right now that's where he's at. But yeah, that does make sense, though, certainly.
And as far as Justin goes, he has good intentions of, dropping weight, apparently. What do you think about that? And do you think that may work against him? Have you seen the ball come off the bat the same way? Sometimes guys lose a little pop when they drop weight. What have you seen in spring? And do you have any reservations about it as the season goes on?
I think Justin is in great shape. I applaud him for his off season. I think that he's a baseball player, and a baseball player is not just an elite baseball player. It's not just about slugging. If you're looking at just the offensive side, I think his skill level as a hitter continues to be elite, and we're counting on him to get on base and drive in runs, which I think he can do. I can't speak to the slug right now, And he's moving as well as he's moved in the last few years. So defensively, it makes him a better player. So the net is certainly way more positive.
Next question's from Bill Plunkett. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dave, saw Mitch White throwing a bullpen today. What's the plan ahead for him?
Yeah, I think Mitchell's going to throw another pen in 3 or 4 days. I think I don't know. We're just going to keep trying to get him off the mound, base hitters. I don't know when he's going to be ready, but today was a good pen for him.
And the velocity question with Clayton, if I correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he already throwing harder at the start of spring last year after the off-season program he went through?
You know what? There might have been, flashes of it, Bill, but I just think that overall, I can't speak to the average velocity in spring training, but I do know that, when it's time to go, time to get major league hitters out, he does that and has always done that. So that's my main concern. I just know that there's always a talk in velocity with not only him, but, most starters. But this is, his third outing and it's part of the build-up process.
How important is velocity to Clayton?
That's a question for him. But I think for me, the command, the pitch mix that he has certainly outweighs the velocity for me. But, any pitcher is going to want to see velocity. And again, I believe it's going to tick up, as he progresses.
In his case, we're talking really only about 1 or 2 miles an hour. Can that difference be that important?
That's the thing for me is that I think that if you look at some of the pitches yesterday, it's command, it's location, and that's part of the process. So to your question, I think people make it a much bigger deal when you have the command that Clayton does have.
Thank you.
Next question's from Juan Toribio. Go ahead.
Hey, Dave, not to kind of pile on the velocity question, but with Kenley kind of giving some of his issues last year, is it kind of time in spring where you're looking up at the radar gun a little bit, seeing where he's at, or is there still some time there?
I think we do that. I mean, I think that it just gives us, a gauge on the pitchers. So I think that, we do that with all of our pitchers. With Kenley, I think a lot of his shortcomings last year was command and misfires. So I think that that's number one. And I do think that the consistent delivery that he's had this spring, the body weight, the way his body's moving, all that will lend to an uptick in velocity as well. But with all pitchers, if you're not, high velocity, you got to command the baseball and mix. And Kenley understands that.
And anything new with Gratter or Joe?
Joe, I think, is going to throw another pen either tomorrow or the next day. Spin some more breaking balls. Bruzar threw a pen today, about 25 pitches, spun some sliders, looked really good. And he'll throw another pen as well in a few days.
Got time for one more. Go ahead, Eric.
Dave, Dennis Santana hasn't pitched in a game, at least in a week. Has he done anything on the backfield? Is he dealing with anything at all?
Not dealing with anything. He threw a backfield game a few days ago, so he's on the slate, I think, tomorrow. And Dennis has had a really good camp. Dennis is doing fantastic.